Taking a cue from the artwork for Eddie from the Cthulhu Death May Die board game, I'm going to paint a miniature entirely using light and shadow to produce one of the fastest paint jobs I've ever whipped up. I'll begin with a little airbrush work, and then I'll skip the washes and go straight to sketching in some final highlights. So let's get started, and welcome to Trehane Miniatures. I'm beginning with a dark blue paint and primer in one as the primer for this miniature, which will serve as a shadow color for the entire piece. Then I grab my airbrush and apply a layer of Vallejo Azure to create the illusion of a moonlight glow on the backside of Eddie. You're probably better off going straight to sketching as your highlights directly over the midnight blue primer and skipping the airbrush. I found that I get better results for this moonlight effect by using a standard brush. It allows for greater contrast between the shadows and highlights, which looks more natural to me. Unlike the blue side, I do want to use the airbrush for the well-lit side of the miniature. I feel like this gives a more natural drop-off of intensity between the highlights and the shadow. On the front of the miniature, I'll work my way from very dark shadows to very bright highlights. I'm using a fairly warm yellow through the airbrush for this base layer of light. I'll switch to a standard brush to paint on some cooler yellow highlights. And while this first bit of yellow probably looks quite bright, it'll diminish in intensity as I sketch on the lighter highlight colors. I'm returning to the Azure paint one more time to intensify the moonlit side of the mini. I'm applying this paint with a mix of dry brushing, sketching, and edge highlighting. I was pretty heavy-handed with the airbrush earlier, and this has cost me some contrast in the piece. I really think that skipping the airbrush and proceeding straight to this step would have produced better results here. I would like to give the airbrush another go in the future to see if I can tone it down a bit. I typically follow the airbrush work with an oil wash to create contrast, but I was looking to avoid that step this time to increase the speed of the project. Perhaps eliminating the airbrush is what was really needed to make things go smoother. I'm using Vallejo Lemon Yellow as the main highlight color for the well-lit side of Eddie. This is a fairly translucent paint, so it's not going to look quite as intense on the miniature as it does in the bottle. I want this light source to appear as if it's coming from the model's left side, so that's where I'll focus my highlights. Highlights do more than simply inform us that light is hitting the model. They also add depth and shape to the character's features that may not otherwise stand out. This will make Eddie's muscles look more defined, and I can use these highlights to draw the viewer's attention to key parts of the model like the face. With all of the main highlights in place, most of our work is done, and we can focus on bringing in a few other colors to liven up the color scheme a bit. I mean, we don't want it to look like we're being too lazy while painting such a cool character. This is the last step before adding a few final highlights. These additional colors are going to be minimal and not detract from the idea that Eddie is heavily affected by two separate light sources. Other than the bright red eyes, I'll use a couple of fairly neutral colors for the other features of the face. The face is usually considered the most important feature of any miniature from a painting standpoint. This is usually where you want to draw the viewer's attention. By adding a few extra colors around the face, it should stand out more than the rest of the sculpt. I'm using Ice Yellow by Vallejo as the brightest highlight color. Following with the same idea as the additional colors, I'm going to use this to further draw the viewer's attention toward the face. The Ice Yellow gets dotted in on the prominent features of the face only. This also helps to make it appear that the lower lying yellow areas and internal parts are a little darker and closer to being in shadow. I mean, I guess that all painting really is just an illusion. I'll continue to work this sparingly over the face until I've reached the desired intensity, and then I'll call it a wrap. Do any of you out there own this Fear Eddie Unknown Monster? Have any of you encountered him yet in any of your plays of Cthulhu Death May Die? I've played through all of Season 3 and some of Season 4, but I actually haven't added the unknown monsters yet. I am still having so much fun just playing with the original rules. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you paint minis that you'll never play with.